Hey, again, thank you for everyone to join. Today, we're going to have a look at dashboards and reports within ProvisionPoint. In today's session, we're going to go through a number of subjects. So we're going to have a look at who gets to see dashboards and reports tabs within ProvisionPoint, a little bit of an overview of what is within the dashboard. We're also going to look at how we can access some filtered reports either from the dashboard or directly in the reports tab. And then finally, we're going to have a look at exporting the report to a CSV. Now, hopefully you can all see ProvisionPoint. Danny, you're going to confirm for me, aren't you? Excellent.
Yeah, we can.
Brilliant. So in our recent release, we have added in the option of showing you a dashboard, just to give you a little bit of an overview of your Microsoft 365 configuration that's held within ProvisionPoint. So it will be looking at all of the settings that you can normally look at within your service definitions, as well as lifecycle policies that are another recent addition. By default, your app manager role that is configured in ProvisionPoint will automatically see dashboards and reports as new tabs within ProvisionPoint. The reason for this being they are the most likely candidates of who wants to see an overview of all of the settings. One thing you can also do under your admin section and settings is allow other users access to the dashboard and the reports should you need to. In here, they work in exactly the same way as all of the other roles that ProvisionPoint have. So you can add in a group of people that are allowed to access them. Now, unlike some of our other ones, they will need to be a member of the licensed user group, as well as dashboard and report users. If you do want to see dashboards, you have to be a report user as well. Otherwise, the nice link between the two does not work. So it's a little overview about who can access those and how you can manage that using our security roles within ProvisionPoint. So now let's have a little bit of an overview into what we can see from our dashboard. We actually have 3 subcategories underneath dashboards and reports, just grouping some of the information together. So your content tab is really looking at what has been created, whether you've got Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365 groups, engaged communities, which service definitions they've been linked to, because you might have multiple service definitions creating teams or sites or communities, as well as then the request process that they're going through. How many are pending approval and how many new requests have you seen? And that's shown in a graph so you can see trends throughout. If I have a look at the new workspace requests area, this is showing me all new requests. And I can zoom in on this just to look at more specific dates or zoom out. And depending on how long you've been using ProvisionPoint, this list can expand back to 12 months. Within any of your service types or service definitions, I can hover over the donut that we have as a graph. And within that, you'll be able to see the number of workspaces associated and the name of, in this case, the service definition. So I can see I've got new project testing and I have got 3 workspaces associated with it. I can also do the same within my service types. And if I wanted to only look at this view without some of these options in here, I can use the legend to turn those off. So now my donut is only showing me Viva Engaged Communities, Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft 365 groups. I can put them back on. Now from in here, we can click on any of these areas or elements within the dashboard to take us to a filtered report. So for example, if I want to see all 3 workspaces that are pending approval, I can simply click on that number and it will take me to a pre-filtered report focusing on the values that I've selected. And from here, I can easily continue to filter my requests if I need to, or just have a look at the content within. So a nice useful option here is being able to see who made the request and who is the approver. So now for your admins, you can get an overview of this very quickly from within dashboards. The same applies if you want to click on either the legend name or the graph. It will take you into those filtered reports. Now I'm going to have a look now at some of the other tabs that we have. So we have a privacy tab as well. So this is going to focus more on your privacy, external sharing, guest access and sensitivity labels if you're using those to control those container elements instead of ProvisionPoint. And this is meant to give you a really quick overview. So you want to look at how many workspaces do I have that have guest access? And I can see I've got 7. I can quickly go in and have a look at those 7 and look at any other settings that may be related to them. I can see their service instance name. So this is the name of the team or the site or the group that's created. I can see what types they are, the service definition. I can even see what status they're at. So whether or not they've been completed, maybe the approval hasn't been approved, or whether they're pending approval, or if they've had a failure. But I can also look at additional information that might be relevant to that guest access setting. So for example, if guest access is enabled, you normally also need to allow some external sharing if you want to share information out to those guests as well. So you may want to easily review both of those settings. Now I'm clicking back on my browser at the moment. So if I access a report from one of my views, I can just use the back button to take me back. So if I wanted to look at guests and then quickly look at external sharing, I can quickly jump between the reports. The final tab that we have is Lifecycle. So this is going to look at things like expiry date, lifecycle policies that have been applied, as well as the actual status of your creation request. So status here, as you can imagine, shows me any pending approval, any failures, any approval rejected, and all of my completed. So I can get an overall count of all of the workspaces and what status they're at. I can also look into my lifecycle policies, and this is showing me all of the names of lifecycle policies that I have that have been assigned via my service definitions. One thing to note is obviously we do not show anything to do with lease in this area for lifecycle. Our aim for you going forward in this first half of the year is to also look at migrating from lease to lifecycle, so that you get the full functionality of the application going forward. Another graph that we have on here is looking at the expiry date. So if you want to see anything that's coming up for expiry soon, you can use, again, the filter to have a look around, focus in on specific dates. So I'm probably more interested in the January 30th. So I can see what is going to expire in January 30th. You may notice that as I've gone into this filtered report, the values that are shown are ever so slightly different. This one focuses on expiry date, life cycle policy, but it does also show you whether it's already been archived or whether the workspace has been deleted in Microsoft 365. So we can easily see what's going on with these workspaces. Now, as I mentioned, you don't have to use the dashboards. You can also just go straight into the reports view. And from here, all of the column headers, you can see you've got the drop down that you'll be used to from our directory, allowing you to apply filters. And these can be applied on different options. And depending on what you're looking for, you can go into any of the subcategories and have a look at that data and manipulate that so that it's giving you the report of information that you want to see. For example, I might say I want to look for anything where guest access is disabled. And I might also want to look at external sharing as well and make sure that is set to only people in my organisation, or I might be looking for other things. So are there any set with new and existing guests? No, that's great. I can go down and have a look and change that to existing guests. No, so that's good. I can really build out these reports to help me get to the information that I want to see. Now, I do have an example. So I'm looking at implementing sensitivity labels into the tenant. And I can see that I've already started, but not very far yet. I've got one internal and one confidential label. The rest of mine don't have any. So how can I filter down and quickly find out which ones should I maybe have this internal sensitivity label on? Well, I can use my dashboard as a starting block. I'm going to start in external sharing, only people in my organisation. So for these sites, the sharing has been limited. So I know that technically this is meant to be internal. Now, for some of them, they're not group connected, so we will see some not set for the guest access. But I really want to look for any that are disabled. They're not going to allow guests in. And then finally, I can look for sensitivity and see that I now have a list of workspaces that don't allow external sharing, don't have guest access enabled, and I can see which sensitivity labels are applied. So this gives me a good indicator that these should all have my sensitivity label assigned. I can use the export option here to export out a list of all of those workspaces. And that will create me a CSV file that I can access and look at that data. Now, as well as looking at it, this is where our API can also come in and help. I now have the service instance ID of all of those workspaces, and I can filter out the one that does currently have a sensitivity label, so I wouldn't want the second one. I can also add some more filters where I say, actually, I'm only interested in the ones that were completed. So I've probably exported this a little bit early. I could have done some more filters in ProvisionPoint to get me to a much better list. Here's one I made earlier. So now I know all of my IDs. I can enable the action that allows me to change the sensitivity label and run it using this CSV file with one of our bulk API scripts. So this can really help progress you through making the changes that you need. So that's a little bit about dashboards and reports within ProvisionPoint. It's one of our nice new features, hopefully giving you a little bit more oversight of your environment and allow you to then work with ProvisionPoint to make sure everything is configured as you need it to be. There are also some knowledge-based resources. So within our help centre or our ProvisionPoint help centre, there is a dashboard and reporting area, which just gives a brief overview of both of the tabs. All of the articles are updated on a regular basis. So again, have a look in here. If you have any questions, reach out to the ProvisionPoint team. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for your time today. As I say, we're here when you need us. We hope you enjoy using dashboards and reports in ProvisionPoint, and no doubt we will talk to you all again really soon. Thank you for joining us today, and have a lovely rest of your day.